I want to see that Jace priority, as you were mentioning, but I also look towards champions like the Rise right now, Twisted Fate, which was targeted against T1 in their playoff series. These are picks that you don't see necessarily in other regions prioritized this highly, but with these two teams, you certainly do.
Well, we're into draft, guys. Game number 1 starts, and you guys were talking about the Jace. I think red team might be forced to ban that every single time because both teams want it, and if it's left open, like GBM said, you just first pick it.
And the Aurelia, of course, an incredible power pick on the patch 11.16. The Aphilos ban is an interesting one, and it also kind of mitigates the threat of that fresh from carrier, right? That's the most popular combination, whereas you can go for the Jinx. Isn't as blindable, in my opinion. And the Renekton, we were wondering, is it still going to be a consistent... Yeah, it is still going to get banned away. And I love the Ziggs, because that is something that Ghost and Kia have used to neutralize the power of enemy bot lanes a lot.
Now, there's a lot of different things you could pick into this Rise. The Lucian that's left available, not a strong matchup there. We've seen oftentimes the LeBlanc chosen into this, but also Faker can pull out the Azir, which is being hovered right now. You do kind of point yourself towards late game scaling with this a little bit more, but it's a good lane matchup. They'll pivot away from it and look towards that Viego. Still an extremely strong pick. We're seeing it in all regions right now across playoffs.
Yeah, and the thing about the Viego is that it can be flexed, although Kana, it is his third most played alongside of Khan, so it's a takeaway, it's a flex. You don't have to throw it to the top lane, even though you might, as Azir will be picked, and that will be Faker's first choice, as Ashe and Camille follow it up for Damwon.
And already Damwon have a lot of the picks that they like. You pick away the Rise from T1, which is one of their main components in how they are able to not only find early game leads, but then turn it into very quick and snap map movements. And you get a utility AD carry for Ghost. He's looked incredible on the Ashe. Kind of hard to punish as well, has a lot of good matchups. And then the Camille getting picked here, to me, is... I don't know whether they were going for the read that it was indeed guaranteed going to be that Viego top, because Viego top, of course, not as strong on the current patch. Jungle is a lot more consistent, and it will be again. We saw this in the semis as well. The Gwen for Kana.
Yeah, the Gwen coming through here. It's always a chance that it's flex to the jungle, but seems very unlikely at this current stage. And when you're T1 here, you're targeting jungles now because you know that that's going to be the strength that Damwon is looking for. Next, you take away the Xin Zhao here, which is going to give them a lot of mid-game control. You do not want this Camille to snowball out of control. The side lane pressure she can put off later on in the game is strong. Not as strong, though, with the Gwen coming through that you mentioned. You definitely have an answer now as T1. Both of these teams have really strong late-game power. I think what's missing here for T1 is a late-game scaling AD carry, because right now you have Ashe that is going to be great in terms of the support, is going to be able to set up a lot of team fights, but doesn't do as much damage as some of the options available here for T1.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you just go ahead and ban out Canyon's most played in the Diana, or do you just say, okay, doesn't look like they're going to want to play it with this comp, and in fact, they are going to take away the Tom Kench alongside of the Xin Zhao, so that will be the choice. As Thresh available, other AD carries available here as well.
And I would love for T1 to hold the counter pick for carrier here, because I think you can, knowing your AD carry matchup, go and pick up something that matches up well into the Ashe, and by doing so, make use of carrier's champion pool. This is a different approach where obviously you're gonna use the Leona, which is a much stronger power pick. Does really provide T1 with some much needed engage, so I don't mind this as much. And now it's up to Damwon to actually round out their compositions. The Rel is still available, which is something that Barrel in counterpick situations has absolutely loved. Don't know if they want to go for that when the Braum is open, which is, yeah, feels very good into the T1
The Braum is so strong into the Gwen and the Viego, not to mention hard engage that the Leona is going to try to offer you here. The slows are going to be massive. He'll go for the exhaust, and it does give you a lot more time to react if T1 engage, because you yourself already have the better engage. As you mentioned, the Leona's Solar Flare going to be your best bet for T1 to actually start a team fight. You have a lot of follow-up once you do. You have the Emperor's Divide, as we will see this Trundle, which has been so popular in Korea, come through. It looks to be Canyon's jungle pick.
Wow. So if Damwon don't want to fight, they never have to. They also have a lot of different ways to open fights of their own. And look at this, we get Teddy on Ezreal for game number 1. This guy popped off so hard in the semis against Genji. If you missed that, you get to see the encore here.
This is what I was talking about. You know, when you have the Ashe, you do have a lot of engage opportunities, and with this composition, there's a lot of power in the side lanes. You can avoid team fights, as you mentioned, Valdez, but if you have a late game scaling AD carry here as T1, you've already got a scaling Azir here, and you're just heading towards making sure this late late game carry can pop off. You have a lot of disengage options with this comp as well, and I personally really like T1's composition more.
I think the risk with T1's composition, though, is that you get run over in the early game. If you look at the Damwon Kia composition, they still have a lot of ways to force in the mid game, and the most existent early game power that you have available as T1 is exclusively at Viego, and Viego gets enabled when he can skirmish, but then you look at the Gwent, needs some time, Azir as well. So Damwon Kia very strong in terms of early game pressure points, very good side laning, but if T1 can make it through the early game, they're looking good.
Yeah, I mean, looking at a late game for both of these teams, I feel like either side could have a decent opportunity, right? T1 have an insane amount of scaling on their side, but there is so much pick potential and side lane potential from the side of Damwon as well. We could be in for a real treat here, especially if T1 are able to hold on early.
Yeah, it should be a really exciting one. I've got my money on T1's draft here, but we'll see how it turns out on the Rift.
That's where it all matters. We have to get onto the Rift and see who will be able to take this game number 1. And guys, it is time. Let's jump into that game 1 right now. And here we go into the finals. Damwon up against T1. As you can see, guys, we have recorded a bunch of fans cheering. Unfortunately, with the current situation with the pandemic, of course, there are no fans here currently with us, but they are watching from around the world, including you guys listening to this right now. So thank you for being here, and I hope that we just embark on a absolutely fantastic journey of hopefully 5 games.
That's the dream, right? And it's exciting that we're finally in a venue for this finals, even if there aren't fans here. It definitely adds a lot of gravity to what is already a pretty amazing final story-wise. And Chronicler gets to have his first offline final in Korea.
Hey.
Very excited to have you having that opportunity.
Owner as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Carrier, right, is someone that, if you go back, like, a lot of these players debuted during the time when there wasn't other venues to go to for a final. So that's also something that, of course, comes into play. And when we look at the early pathing here, leashless start for Canyon, which does mean that it's going to be a little bit easier for the Damwon Kia bot lane to take some early control. And both of these top laners have gone for the Ignite, of course, much more common, but does also increase the volatility. So if one of these two gets ahead, and with that in mind, I like the early pathing from Canyon towards top, it can mean so much for how that matchup plays out throughout the rest of the game.
For sure. And, you know, you do add a lot of risk with this, as you mentioned it too, if you're the one who is losing out on the top side of the map. So I have a bit of a trade here. But it's definitely one that, you know, it favors snowballing. And for both of these players, I think that has kind of been the snowbally style we've been seeing from them throughout the end of regular season and playoffs, as Canyon does path up, as you mentioned.
Oh, that was pretty quick. They're going for this. The flash comes in from Canyon. There's no flash on Kana, and a first blood at 2 minutes and 46 seconds. What a huge gank this early on in the game.
And I love the commitment there, knowing that there is no Ignite
Owner's getting
available.
in there. He's going to land that stun, but the teleport takes a while to get on top of him. Canyon, of course, no flash, and now the teleport coming in, but the stun landing once again, and everybody's getting into this fight here as the Ignite is not going to get the kill. Onto Canyon.
Baker flash!
He's flashing for this one and going through the wall. One more auto would do it, but he can't see him over the wall. We're 3 minutes into the game, and Baker might just die to the turret, although Showmaker's just going to laugh at him. Lands it, throws up the thumbs up, and that's it for Faker over here.
This is a disaster. Faker uses both of his summoners, dies Kana, loses summoners, dies on the top side of the map. And this is a huge lead for Damwon Kia early on. The teleport, it takes so long to pull off. They use 2, and it does not work out.
And it's incredible when you see that hard commit from Damwon Kia on top side, knowing that Kana doesn't have a flash available, right? Using the pillar as an extension for the hook shot to make sure that you actually get on top. And I think that play in of itself is survivable. That's manageable. At least Kana will be able to get this wave. Thank you for the leash. But then, I like the idea behind what T1 tries to do that, because do not forget, this is a Viego in the early game. If he can get a single soul, he can start those resets, you can turn that around, but the response from Damwon is just too clutch.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pillar was so perfect to actually extend the hook shot, and that's where this happens here as Canyon flashes forward as well. And look at that, the pillar just barely gives the hook shot enough edge. And Kana goes down, then he teleports right back in because Owner is here. But by the time he calls the teleport on this ward, it's already too late. So Faker feels like he's going to double down. It's a bit of sunk cost fallacy here as T1 all in on this push, and it just does not work out.
Yeah, keep in mind this wave was pushing into Faker's turret, so he wasn't able to pick up a lot of that farm. By the time he got back, I think actually Owner had to pick it up, and yeah, Faker uses his flash. He has to run underneath the turret to at least force Showmaker's flash, but as Showmaker, you're like, oh, thank you very much. I mean, we were very good in the early game, but now we're exceptional.
Yeah, that's a lot of CS lost. Being down a Summoner Spell really hurts your options as Faker, especially once you hit level 6. That Emperor's Divide kill pressure isn't as strong anymore.
One upside is that Showmaker, as Velvis pointed out, did have to use his flash, which in terms of Ryze, with a lack of escapes, is still going to have to play a lot more careful once that Shurima Shuffle does become available. But the main thing that this does for Damwon is it alleviates the strengths that they have, right? Because while I think that, as you pointed out earlier, their scaling is good, it is also just incredibly hard to play into T1's composition in late because they can do so many things. They can poke, they can hard engage onto you, their skirmishing is great, their team fighting is great, they have a lot of really hard to get on backline threats, and by being able to get these early kills.
Oh,
man, they're run warping.
Poor Kana, man. He just can't catch a break. This is Ryze and Trundle. How about Camille? How about all three of them get in there and bully? He's just going to burn down to the Ignite as Khan. He doesn't have to look at the explosion. He know he got the kill.
He's got such a massive lead now, Showmaker does, but also Khan. And you have so much power in the mid game with this composition as well. And look at what the items are for Showmaker here. Builds a little bit of extra magic resist early for this, so he knows he can actually make an aggressive play like this without any threat of being traded. I mean, you're such a massive lead now. You're going to get turret plate gold, and yes, the bottom side of the map is going a little bit Teddy-sided, but I think you can allow that when you consider how much gain they get on the top side.
The cool thing is Barrel was also roaming towards top in case that did turn into another extended skirmish. Ghost was just chilling 1v2 in the bot lane, not really being threatened by the pre-6 Leona and Ezreal, so he can just sit there, farm up the wave, be fine. If he loses a couple of creeps, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, this Realm Warp is just so well played. Faker's, it's under his turret. He can't make any sort of counterplay, doesn't have teleport. And this is the power of rotating mid lanes right now in this meta. You use your teleport early for any reason, and Ryze is going to crush you in this situation. Twisted Fate is going to crush you in this situation. You're going to fall further and further behind.
Yeah, and Showmaker with this lead, as you mentioned, Wolf, he got that extra magic resist, made that into the Merc Tread, so now he's got movement speed. Winning there against Faker, he can move up, he can pressure a bit more, and they're just going to have multiple winning lanes here, which is really what you do want with Damwon composition, which we did touch on a little bit at the end of the draft. And you would have to imagine that with this lead, they should be able to secure early Rift Herald in this game, maybe even the Infernal Drake if they want to try to get that and take it away from T1's immense scaling. Lots of options here for Damwon.
It's really hard for Teddy to sit bottom as well and get an advantage because Damwon are going to hold their bot duo as well because they know they have an advantage. They don't need to rotate first. In fact, Teddy is heading up first. They are going to start this. T1 is so desperate.
They're going to bring everybody up to this one. And you can see the late rotation is coming in from Ghost and Barrel as well. They're going to spot this out. Damwon, they say, no, we're going to want to fight you here. You're not just going to get this free objective, but the Rift Herald's already pretty low. Need to hit that eye, trying to get it down there. Now the engage going to be started off onto the level 6 Trundle. The exhaust used onto him as well. And they can't even kill him. They finally do get him down, but Faker's getting low now as Ghost is coming in from behind, but here comes T1 on the front side trying to take out Showmaker. That Ryze not doing enough early on in this game, and T1 will be able to take the 2-for-1 plus the Rift Herald in this fight.
And after such a cleanly played early couple of skirmishes from Kia, I think they should have just let the Rift Herald go. When it's half health, by the time your Ashe is around your Raptors, you're not going to make it. Just rotate back, let them have that objective, because now they're obviously starting a fight from a position where you're always going to be at a man disadvantage.
Yeah, you get Canyon here stun locked, you know, you have the knock up there from the Azir, and it's really just a war of attrition you can't win without Ghost being here. Also didn't use his arrow until very late. Could have tried to use that for a little bit of extra appeal. Doesn't do so. They gain nothing from this. And the risk was just so high, as you mentioned.
And this is something we've seen a lot of LCK teams struggle with, right? Including
yes.
the best. It's like the Rift Heralds, it's like some kind of magnetic force. It pulls everybody in Korea to it. We have to fight over Rift Heralds. Doesn't matter who you are. And Daman, I can understand, you know, with their early game power and their early lead, they wanted to fight over it. But as Chronicler said, like, sometimes you just don't respond in time, and you have to let it go.
And that's okay as well. The ironic thing is that even with that happening, currently the gold lead for Kia is still roughly the same, meaning that until that Rift Herald actually drops, there's not the biggest lead. As Invade does come through here, Owner should spot that momentarily. Can see that still up.
Yeah.
He just pieces out.
Yeah, he's just going to get out of here. But yeah, as you mentioned, the gold lead still stands for Kia. They still have a really nice lead in the top lane, which is the most important, I think, part of this. The mid lane, you know, you got a nice lead as Showmaker. You're still very comfortable here. So things need to get a lot worse before you're feeling comfortable as T1, but this definitely makes your mid game a lot smoother than it was otherwise just moments before.
Teddy has played 60 games of Ezreal in the LCK. He is 5-0 on the pick this season, and he gets it again. So that was actually their last pick as well in the draft, and he wanted to show that he could carry once again here in the finals. Very excited to see that now with T1 getting a bit of a blow back after taking that Rift Herald, if he can pop off.
And both teams have very low Dragon percentages when it comes to a lot of our other teams in the LCK as Ghost.
He is just going to cleanse there at the end. The Zenith Blade not landing onto him, so doesn't even have to flash. They're trying to get some pressure down here. Canyon, though, waiting in the wings. Owner looking to potentially drop that Rift Herald, but it will not amount to much.
Yeah, this topside play, though, could happen as well. You got to be careful as Kana. T1 really want to collapse down here to get that Drake control, though. Faker's here.
Looks like they may have wanted to drop the Rift Herald after a pick, which would have been really nice for the snowball, and then you maybe even get the dragon, but not gonna happen. As Owner thinking about dropping it mid now. We got to fight up in the top side. The needles are coming out. Khan is gonna miss the hook shot as the damage is coming out here with the ignite, but trying to turn it back. Khan will be able to do it. I'm not even sure if he knew himself he was gonna win that fight.
All according to plan, misses the hook shot, and if you hit that hook shot, you go over the wall, you're fine. If you use it to go back into the Gwen, you're fine. But I did not expect him to somehow still win the 1v1, and that is the payoff of having your finished Mythic.
Yes.
That is the payoff of what Kia has been able to do thus far.
Exactly, you have that extra dueling power, and Showmaker was looking to realm war up top several times. He was rotating over, he was roaming, didn't actually need to do so in order to get this kill, actually ends up keeping it here. T1 end up losing out on that bottom trade as well. Don't get the Drake control they're looking for. And suddenly, you know, this looks like a fantastic position yet again for Kia. That top side control is going to be a problem for the rest of this game.
I mean, any Camille that's 3-0 is going to be a problem, as Beryl seems to know something is amiss. Just kind of hanging out there, and Owner just gets away with stealing the red buff, gets over the wall. Having a pretty good start, I would say, to the game. Doesn't look too nervous.
Perfect crime. Just goes in, avoids anyone, and is able to pick up the red buff. And it's those type of tiny wins that, let's not forget, Khan?
Oh, Khan, he doesn't have his Hextech ultimatum, but the sticking power of this Camille is kind of insane right now. And you can see the amount of damage that he has anyway. He's going to push Kana all the way out. We had Showmaker roaming up to the top side as well for a potential Realm Warp. It doesn't amount to a kill, but you're pushing him out of the lane without teleport, and you can get so much pressure here.
And the big thing is, if Canyon can also make his way towards this lane, that they can get through this turret very, very quickly. Both of these are exceptional at taking down turrets. Don't think they can quite go for the finish, should play respectful, but again, that's more plates, that's more minions going into the turret. And Double Kia are taking that pick of the Rise that T1 loves and does exactly what T1 has done in so many of their games.
Kana, and you can see that Kana's not able to get in range, so. And look at what's happening down on the bottom side as well. Karia's not here yet to stem the bleeding up in the top side.
Exactly, when Karia goes up here to help relieve that pressure, you see pings instantly go down for Ghost and Barrel. They're looking to push that turret. They know they can force Teddy out of lane.
Khan seemingly still wanting to face check. He's like, yeah, sure, I'm fine. I mean, he had vision of Karia sitting in the brush and he doesn't care. Karia blows everything except the exhaust, I suppose. And Khan just walks away.
Riftmaker's still not ready here for Kana. It's very difficult for him to actually end up doing any sort of extended trading. We're going to watch this fight once again. And like you said, the hook shot doesn't actually connect, but you know what? At the end of the day, look at how much sustain he has. The mythic advantage here is massive. He has that Divine Sunder, and that's the reason why he ends up winning out, even with the Leeching Leer on the other side.
Really nicely done on avoiding the damage there as well. Of course, that is also one of the ways where, as Camille, you can be so deceptively tanky if you are able to use the Hextech Ultimatum in vulnerability as...
Wow.
Yeah.
Trundle on the replay ends Trundle in live. The pillar value is huge, although Damwon, I'm not sure about this. They're going to try to force another fight around this Rift Herald, this one being the second one. As you can see, the engage, the Zenith Blade will miss, and that's going to be the key for Damwon to start up this fight as they get on in, and Karia is just blown up immediately. Barrel soaks up a lot of the damage, and he has a stopwatch. Faker is trying to carry this as hard as possible, and now Owner's got some value potentially on that backside, but it's just not enough, as another pillar is going to come in here from Damwon. Even slowing down Damwon a little bit, they had to walk around that one. And Faker and Teddy, it looks like they should be able to get away, but yet another team fight win will go the way of Damwon.
Another set of summoners blown here as well. Unfortunately, Faker using his there, Owner having to use his to try to clutch that fight, unsuccessful. They will defend here. But at the end of the day, once again, T1 staying a little bit long on that exchange, really doubling down on the rotation and giving over a bunch of extra kills.
And at least in this game, we're getting a clear answer as to, is the Damwon bot lane doing enough? And they clearly are, right? They didn't really get pressured, and the top side of the map, Khan, Canyon, and Showmaker are doing so much. If you look at these team fights as well, I thought it was a valiant effort by T1, but it does go back to what I said earlier. With this composition, your spikes are a little bit later. Due to the early game, they don't actually have just the right amount of power, because then this might turn around. Maybe you get a couple of more resets on the Viego. Yep. Maybe you see that Kana is able to do a little bit more there. But with how far Damwon Kia is already ahead, straight up 5v5s are always going to be hard. And when they play this well with one player on T1 immediately getting demolished, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, the other thing to consider, too, is he was a little bit late on his possession there. Ended up picking the Ashe, who's just extremely squishy. So there's not much you can do to kind of pop off as an early game Ashe, you know, at that moment as you get the possession. So they will get this Rift Herald to charge through. And that's going to be a lot of extra gold going over the top side, but it's not without a cost. It's not without being punished, right? Showmaker's getting value bottom side. Mid lane is being dominated by Ghost, is picking up a lot of extra farm. And they're just everywhere on this map. However, this looks like it might get an extra charge.
It's a lot of pressure from T1, and they're looking for a bit more. I'm not sure about that play, Faker, but at the end of the day, it's okay because you push them out of the lane, you get the turret. It's a lot of value that T1 need right now to stay, you know, at a similar level, at parity here, at least with Damwon, in order to scale up a bit more.
I actually think this is the first really big macro win that we've seen for T1, because the cross-map play from Damwon, you get the first Drake, took 17 minutes for us to get there, and you get one turret. But not only does T1 get the first turret blood with that Herald that they fought so valiantly for, didn't go very well, but if you then pick up first turret blood, as well as that second tier turret, you see that the gold lead that was starting to balloon for Damwon Kia stabilizes a little bit. And let's not forget, T1 still has a kind of composition where a single team fight that goes well in the late game and either Owner pops off or Teddy goes unchecked, still terrifying to play into.
Yeah, it could be very explosive, and you could suddenly, if a mistake comes through from Damwon Kia, really turn this game around, and you stem the bleeding after what you lost in the early to beginning of the mid game. Now you've at least got something back. You you know, are keeping the Camille's gold lead manageable. Yes, it is a pretty disastrous situation. You're 0-4-3 as Kana here, but you're still getting a little bit of side laning done. The extra pressure that T1 is putting on the map is what they became famous for in the second part of summer, is controlling macro, having better control over turrets and objectives, and that's what we're seeing here.
That's why I was so excited after I saw the drafts. I'm like, this is the perfect game to go kind of even for 20 minutes, back and forth, blows going back and forth, and then you just get crazy macro plays. Who's going to make the better play at the end of the day, I think, is going to make the difference, right? And you can see already the split pushing is coming in here for Damwon. Kana is trying to do his best down on the bottom side, but they stop the backs. Nobody can get up to the top side, and Damwon are going to be able to take down potentially an inner turret here.
Yeah, really love the expensive resources just to buy more time for Khan and Showmaker. Do need to play respectful, as there is still the threat of a T1 hard engage there, but it's exactly this type of decisiveness that has categorized both of these two teams throughout basically the entirety of playoffs, right? And something that I'm really excited about if the game continues on this pace is that while I think T1 has an edge in terms of raw scaling, Damwon Kia's decisiveness in team fights has been insane. And with Ashe, Camille, and Ryze, you can just blow up targets in split seconds. So they, as we saw earlier, can still find someone from a really large distance, blow them up, regardless of what the later game state is.
Yeah, and when you consider that you have a Ryze to engage from a long way away on top of an already winning Camille, it's going to be really difficult to control the map, as T1 has been trying to keep up with here in this mid-game. When the game goes later, suddenly the amount of resources you have to rotate to deal with Khan is too much, and you can easily be countered and crushed by a Realm Warp. You think you have a numbers advantage chasing that heal Khan down, the Camille, and then suddenly Showmaker shows up with 3 other people, and you get caught, you get collapsed on.
Yeah, it's that, or you know, you have the Camille balloon out of control, which, by the way, is happening, right? Camille, 3-4 items. I don't even know if even the Gwen is going to be able to handle that. I mean, no. Gwen is kind of insane in her own right, especially with the sustain from her ultimate, but it's Camille with 4 items, right? And she's getting there extremely fast, and then you just get the Ryze over there as well, and nobody can stop that, unless you're going to rotate your entire team. So it's already happening. We're only 20 minutes into the game, and I don't think Damwon are ever going to elect to fight a 5v5, and that's going to be up to T1 to potentially set up, you know, team fights like that and force Damwon into their favor.
And what I do like about that scenario for T1 is the Drakes are so late that if Damwon Kia is going to avoid fighting, they at least have a lot more time to get Teddy fully online, to get this Azir fully online. And the longer the game goes, that gap is going to be as hard on the top side.
The exhaust has to be used here in their own jungle. Keria just trying to clear out vision again in their own jungle. Yeah. And Showmaker level 13 just begins the machine gun Ryze plays.
Ghost arrow.
Okay, trying to get on in there, but here comes Faker, and look at that Emperor's Divide. He gets 3, and this is the team fight T1 we're looking for. This is what we have been talking about, as the damage is not enough to take out Showmaker. Somehow he gets out of there, as the Gwen is going insane. I'm not sure, Damwon, you want to take this fight. Kana is ready and willing. He doesn't care that he's 0-4. He's a Gwen, and he comes in there and does insane damage.
Such a nice counter engage from Faker. You know, this composition has really nice counter engage when you dive in, when you do extend into these fights. Emperor's Divide is perfect for this. And in a scrappy skirmish like this, the Gwen, even down on items, is going to get tons of value.
Yeah, if you're able to get that front to back, Gwen in any situation with the needlework can get so much work done. But honestly, Damwon Kia, the Azir is there. Faker sees you. Can't really get away with this, especially this close to a turret. And it's a really good punish by T1, and here you still see the power. The fact that Showmaker gets away here is pretty insane, especially considering there's a flash. The back end of this fight with Khan finally making his way over actually isn't too bad. And I think that even with how poor this looks, if Khan is here, this is salvageable. There's low health bars on the entirety of T1, despite that amazing shuffle from Faker. But this is some of the inconsistency that we've seen from Damwon Kia. Yes, they're decisive, sometimes a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Oh, well, man. I think T1 are going to have a decent idea this is happening, but the damage is insane from the Fed Ryze already. Here comes Keria, puts down the ward, and now they know the damage is already there. As you're saying, where's the jungler? Owner's trying to get over here, but he cannot on time. And now, this is the thing about Damwon. They have Braum, they have Trundle, they have Ashe. if they don't want to fight, they don't necessarily have to, but they're going to wait in the bush. And I don't know about that one, as Kana once again is throwing out the needles, but the Trundle is doing so much. They're going to be able to blow up the Ashe, but who cares about that? As it looks like the wallets of Damwon are getting there at this point in time. Kana desperate to try to turn this one around, but the stun is going to go down onto Teddy, and there is the ace, as Damwon will pick up the win in the team fight.
You're so late to respond here, but you can't just let it go. You try to look for a fight here, and Faker's Emperor's Divide was decent, but he's blown up instantly, and now you've given Damwon Kia full control plus Baron, and this should be inhibitor pressure.
And I actually love this. I think it's really risky, but it works out very well because you have the Braum, right? In exactly these type of situations, it gets so much done, and you know that the teleport is available. And the moment that Khan teleports in, it's over, right? And it speaks to the class of Kana and Teddy that this fight is as close as it is, but simultaneously, I was talking about the top side for Damwon Kia, and it's Khan, Canyon, and Showmaker that are still standing with that Baron buff.
It's insane how much this could have been a turnaround for T1. Like, that was actually a moment where you could have deleted a majority of those Baron buffs, gotten all that gold deficit back. You could have then had control over the map, and for the first time started clearing vision not only in your own jungle, but on the blue side of the map. You would have actually had a lot of power, a little bit of extra side lane you could put on there with Kana, but they're unable to actually win the fight decisively. They're on the cusp of it, which speaks volumes, like you said, to the power of this composition, or rather these players, but also the power of this composition, and how well Teddy is going to do in these upcoming fights in this game that is already very delayed by the late first Drake take.
I love the role of Ghost on the Ashe in this game. He throws out hawk shots, and he gets vision and control for his team to make map plays. And look at this. Kanye's just like, yeah, I dare you. Like, you want to walk past that pillar? I don't think you want any of this right now. And with the Baron buff, they're trying to chip away at as many inner turrets as possible.
Can we also know that Kane has gone for pillar max? Like, he's all about the pillars, right? And this is a Trundle that's also decently fed, has gone for the Divine Sunderer, and is able to actually chomp people down still pretty well at this point. But the amount of utility that it provides to the rest of his team has been so well used by Damwon Kia, now applying pressure in 2 lanes here. No one can really go on top of Khan because he has stopwatch and is a monstrously fat Camille, and it's hard to defend from the onslaught here as T1.
Yeah, and this is the thing about Damwon, especially with the Baron. You can sit here, throw down pillars, throw out volleys. The Braum is always there. T1, yes, they have a good team-fighting team, but they kind of need it on their own terms. They can't exactly go into a phalanx from Damwon because they have so many tools to deny it.
The only real engagement tool from distance that we talked about in the draft is going to be this Leona, but you do have the Emperor's Divide. You can use it defensively, but you aren't going to be able to make that call under Baron pressure. You know, when these mini waves are stacking up on your turrets, you have to just kind of sit back and defend. That being said, considering the win in that team fight for Damwon Kia with the Baron, they don't break any of the inhibitor turrets. They're not able to get that much control over the map. So even though it's not a great situation for T1 here, the 6,000 gold down, this is a bit of a recovery moment. They are starting to catch up. Their comp is starting to fully come online.
I do think that just with that Baron take, and you can see how much the gold has now gone up, even with how good the scaling on T1 is, the one big issue is that are you going to hit your spikes for the relevant fights that are going to come through? And I think even though the base hasn't actually been broken open, so it's not true desolation yet, the state of the game for T1 is still very disadvantageous, because if you look at the actually completed items, Damwon Kia have so much power, so much luxury as well, which means that they have not only more stats, but also more survivability, more playmaking potential with things like all the stopwatches that are available. And I think as T1, you're just gonna have to give up this Cloud Drake. Haven't talked about the Cloud Soul yet, by the way, but of course we get a Cloud Soul in the first game of the finals. Why wouldn't we?
Just after the pre-show with Atlas, you know. Yeah, you mentioned the stopwatch advantage. 10 control wards currently held, by the way, for Damwon Kia. They are not going to let any vision slip through the cracks here for T1. They don't want them to have any opportunities to flank or look for and engage with Faker or Owner. Just don't allow that to happen. They're just going to massively control the vision. Look at all the control wards around this red side jungle. Just no opportunities for T1.
Vision is incredibly key for Damwon if you're trying to play this somewhat difficult style of 1-3-1. You're trying to pull T1 out of position. You need to know where they're rotating to. You need to keep your Camille safe, your Ryze safe. You need to have better vision and deny vision so that you can look for those incredible picks that we talked about with all of their bursts with the Camille Rise and the Ashe. So it's of the utmost importance, and I would expect that we're going to have incredible vision control from Damwon here.
Notice also that Khan doesn't overstay his welcome. The one part where of the map where they didn't have full vision control is the deep part of that red side jungle where he was pushing top. As soon as the rotation comes through from T1, they know there's a few people missing on the map. He steps back, doesn't overextend, doesn't give over that huge 700 gold bounty that he's holding right now. As Damwon Kia, you just want to play it safe right now. Sit back, like you said, avoid those 5v5 fights. Don't let Teddy come online. And you're just going to look for objective after objective. And this is where the game slows down a little bit at this stage.
And this might be Khan's very last series in the LCK ever. Right?
Very
like, let
likely.
that sink in. Because yes, we're going to see Damwon Kia at Worlds. But with him being very vocal about going to the military, it's not a bad first game to have, you know?
Yeah,
being this fat
it's okay. Yeah.
Going in, doesn't even care.
3 levels up.
We're getting to the point, 3 levels is actually just too much. And we're getting to the point where Kana can't lane against him, right? It might have to be Faker, it might have to be Owner coming over to relieve pressure. But the second any of these people go, you just start the Baron.
Yeah.
They have so much damage. And now this split pushing win condition for Damwon is incredibly online. Kana desperately going to throw out the ultimate, and now Damwon just go onto the Baron. They can pull off if the pressure isn't there, and Khan will just continue pushing.
It's win-win here for Damwon Kia. You walk away from the Baron, you still have control, and now you're hitting an inhibitor turret. It's basically checkmate. Khan, can he get out of this one? The answer is yes, easily. And, I mean, look, with Realm Warp here, you have so much playmaking potential, not to mention they have teleports on both solo laners.
Yes. And Faker's got his own, as does Kana. But if Kana ever teleports out of the lane, I mean, Khan might just win the game. And that's not an exaggeration. This Camille has insane pushing potential already with the Ravenous Hydra, of course, and can destroy these turrets that are coming out here. We're just going to have the Ashe Arrow fly by. We're going to have some more Cloud Drakes on the map here in just a moment. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, this is really just total control right now to Damwon Kia, and as soon as this Drake timer ticks down, you just group up, look for that one, and if you actually have to give it up, that's okay too. Like if T1 gets this, it's such a tiny win compared to what Damwon Kia will be able to take on the map. It just feels like it's inevitable at this point, and for T1, you need one miracle fight, but you don't have great engage tools, and as long as Damwon Kia don't overextend like they did so long ago in the mid lane, feels like ages ago now, where we did see that overextension, it's going to be so difficult to actually take a fight on your terms.
It also goes back to the importance of that first pick Rise, right? And there was already talks about how important the pick was going to be. If T1 have the Rise, what Khan is doing right now is not possible, because Realm Warp counters so many of the plays that you're trying to set up now, and with Damwon Kia locking that in, they enable Khan so much more.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And T1, they're kind of calling the bluff, and here we go! We're going to scoop up 3 under the turret, but the damage is coming out here already from the Gwen. We got a one-on-one here in the river as Owner's trying to win that one, but the Zhonya's is completed. Showmaker going to have some help from his friend, but he's trying to Realm Warp out of here. As the Solar Flare not going to get it done, but that is another big Emperor's Divide from Faker. He's still trying to win this one for his team.
And they made that fight happen. I said it wasn't possible. I said they didn't have the tools, but Faker walked forward and under turret tossed it out. Now they've got control over this Baron pit.
And Canyon, you can see flashless. He doesn't have health. They're going to have to let it go, as T1 will be able to pick up a huge objective. They take it away from Damwon in their split pushing. They get some extra gold, and they scale into this later game.
3 items up for Teddy, starting to feel winnable here for T1. They still have a long way to go. They're not in the lead by any means, but this is, once again, going to extend the game, and it is going to be a great position for them on the map. As engage tools, again, fairly weak, but you've got a numbers advantage here, and Faker shuffles in and goes for the 3-man knockup, gets it, because this is the only way you can force a fight, is just saying, you know what, I'm not going to play your macro game anymore, I'm going under turret, and I'm going to Emperor's Divide.
And it's the preemptive flash that we've seen some of our best Azir players pull out, knowing that the enemy is going to try and get away from it as well. And this pressure by Owner is so important, because him zoning Showmaker away here and actually getting out as well means that your jungler is still alive, so you can actually go for this play. The Rise isn't there to bounce a couple of 1,000 damage orbs into that relatively low backline. And even if you don't get Baron, that plays a win because you force Khan's teleport. That's a lot of pressure gone, but you do get the Baron. And now, possible fight for the third Drake here.
Yeah, and this is the thing, Damwon, they feel like they can go for fights like these after giving up the Baron. They don't have any split pushing pressure. They're just going to go in a straight 5v5 against C1. That's not necessarily what you're looking for, as here comes the Gwen. Kana gets in there. Going to have a very nicely timed stopwatch as now Carriot trying to stun that backline, and Gwen does her job, but look at Showmaker. He's going insane, but it doesn't matter as Teddy is full health as well, and he's trying to carry this one from the backline. Khan is gigantic, but Teddy trying to keep him at range here. The stopwatch is going to help out. As you can see, Teddy,
Power of Teddy.
He'll try to kite them out, but he can only do so much. Yes, he stays alive, but man, Khan is just a menace. He must be legendary. 9-0 already in this game.
It's insane what he's able to do. If he's not this fed, if he's not able to get on top of and threaten the carries here of T1, then Teddy, absolutely carries that fight. We got Carrier. we got Carrier in here. But it's Teddy who could have potentially carried that fight. His owner will unfortunately not be able to stop the back here. But this was a huge potential turning point here for T1. They're not able to lock it up though because Khan is so fed.
And also, Khan saves his Guardian Angel there, which makes any subsequent fight even more close. If you're able to pop that, you're going to feel a lot better. And I don't mind the call to go for a fight here. But again, you're trying to fight into a Braum, and yes, while he dies relatively early and Canyon is getting taken down as well, the actual damage dealers are all completely fine, right? Like, the sustain that Khan has with this build, the Steric Shield, the beautiful use of the stopwatch here, means that still, Teddy can't go God mode because there is still too much damage available, because the space is not provided to him. Yeah. But with this Drake getting picked up, simultaneously, Baron buff is gone. Yeah, it's a 5k gold lead, but in the grand scheme of things, doesn't mean that much. And as far as game ones in the finals go, it's pretty perfect so far.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of following the storylines, right? Early game control to Damwon Kia, a lot of power there. That's where T1 is at their weakest. They overextend, give over a pretty huge lead, but slowly but steadily they're clawing their way back in. As 5,000 gold the lead for Khan here nearly.
It's pretty gross at this point in time. I don't know how they're going to be able to salvage this lane. They need like maybe even another 10 minutes for Kana to have anything. And again, it's the Camille that's out of control fed with 4.5 items, I should say. I don't know if even Kana at full build will be able to handle it. And Khan played that last fight so beautifully as well. He stunned up the Viego so that Owner could not get early resets and get the snowball going. And then he was able to just survive and peel for the backline so perfectly as well. Khan not dying, but also creating so much for his team. It's not like he's playing like a KDA player or anything like that. Oh. So just awesome stuff so far.
In the front line for T1 is just so incredible that it's so difficult to get those executions as Owner, and it's difficult for Teddy to actually threaten the backside of the map. So Showmaker is just free to do damage the entire time, and even Ghost is just a support here in this, but he's starting to do a lot of fight, but a lot of team fight damage, but he actually gets slow during these fights. And when you're looking at these fights for Kana, yes, he has the Zonias, and yes, he can engage hard, but when the positioning is so good for the front line here, you've got a Trundle, you've got a Fed Camille, you've got a Braum. How do you carry? How do you get those resets? It's so difficult here for T1.
What I am happy is to see that T1 also identifies that split push situation should be avoided as much as possible. And the way to do that is, as we saw earlier, if it's 3 people and they're up too far, Showmaker isn't with them, just dive them, right? And the fact that T1 was able to push the trigger that aggressively, I think is a really good sign for them, because it means that they recognize how much power this composition has. A single kill is enough to start popping off in those fights. And if you let Damwon Kia just freely play the map against you, no one will match Khan. Khan at this point, if he plays it well, which currently clearly he's doing, can presumably 1v2 a bunch of members on T1. So finding those openings like Keria and Faker were able to do twice now in really key moments is what is going to give T1 the win if they are able to get back from this huge goal deficit.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting to see which players have really been popping off early on. You know, we talked about a lot of stuff in the pre-show before the game actually began. I was really looking forward to the Canyon versus Owner matchup. I feel like Owner's been playing decently in his own right. Canyon did so much for his team in the early game, especially the top lane, to get Con fed to this point, that I think he's doing a great job. As now T1, they're just going to pull the trigger on this one. The teleport's already coming out here. The damage kind of insane already at 38 minutes, and you can see that Canyon, he's struggling to get in there, and Azir, Baker of all people, is going to be able to take down that Baron. But now Dalma looking for the fight, the Camille in this one. Huge bounce damage now from the Rise in the front line, but he's going to have to go golden. It doesn't matter, he's got backup from his team. And this skirmish, if you don't have a Viego, I think that Dom1 should be able to eventually win it. Don't know if they can kill Teddy. They're going to give it a shot here as Khan doesn't want to let him go, and the pillar should be enough. No flash even used by Teddy. He knows that it's pretty dire and has to give it up.
You just put yourself into a corner as T1 in this fight. Yes, you have the damage to rush down the Baron, but you don't have enough of a positional advantage to stop Dom1 Kia from collapsing in. And once you're locked into that fight, you don't have a lot of room to peel. You don't have a lot of room to front-to-back fight.
That might be it as well, because they're pushing in on top side. Look at how long it is before Teddy's actually going to be alive here.
It's such a long death timer.
Yeah, the Baron buff here, I don't know if it's going to be enough. There are no minions up just yet, and the damage is coming out. That is big on the Solar Flare, but Ghost, he's got a front line, and he has the cleanse. They do have enough damage to take down the Viego, and they will have enough to take down game number 1. Dom1 will defeat T1 here in 39.5 minutes to take game 1 of the finals.
Fantastic start to the series, though. You're starting to see some of the strengths of both of these teams